Hey folks, thanks for watching Average Doug Outdoors. You're on the couch with Average Doug, and I want to talk to you today about finding permission property and how to ask for permission to hunt that property. Now, I made a video in the past about the pros and cons of permission property. I think by far permission property is the best to hunt. One of the reasons is, and I think the main reason is because the deer that are on it are used to hearing human sounds. They're used to hearing humans talk. They're used to hearing dogs bark. They're used to hearing tractors and things like that running and all that. And so they are not as skittish because they have learned, the deer have learned that these type sounds are something that they do not have to be afraid of. So they have learned that. Plus, they're in more of a routine, the deer are, around there. Now, whenever you're out hunting, public land or whatever, a lot of times you pass property somewhere and you might see something that looks like a big piece of property and you think, you know, there's probably deer on this property. There's probably turkey on this property. It could be wooded. If it's great if you have something that has wooded area plus field area that you can hunt. Now, over the past few years, deer have moved into the city or urban settings, okay? It's not because they're being run out of the country. What it is they find food a whole lot better in these urban settings. They're still wild animals even though you see them. And the deer population has exploded. In the 1930s, I think there was estimated 35,000 deer in the United States. Last estimate was over 35 million deer. I say it's probably doubled that since that time. So deer are absolutely everywhere. Now, some of the problems that people have, particularly if they have cows, they do not like to have deer on their property. They're eating up the grass for the cows. Even though they don't eat that much, they look at it that way. You know, they're eating up the grass for the cows. Plus, they're worried about diseases from the deer. But let's face it, there's really not that much disease that comes from deer. They just don't like all the deer that's on their property. To them, they are a pest. So a lot of times people will allow you to hunt their property. Now, if I see a piece of property somewhere and I think, you know, that could be a good place to hunt deer, what I do is I kind of find locations in that area, okay? Certain locations that I can remember that area. I will go home and I will go on Google Maps and I will go on and look at the satellite imagery of that piece of property. By doing so, you can find out if it has ponds, streams, trails, you know, all this stuff. And a lot of times you can see where people have mapped out their property on it. A lot of times they own property next to it and all that. And then I will just make my way up. Now, I don't go beating on the door early in the morning or something like that, and certainly not on Sunday mornings. But midday, whatever, I'll make my way onto their property. And I will go up and introduce myself, shake their hand, and tell them that I'm a hunter and I've been out hunting, and I wonder if they would give me permission to hunt their property. Sometimes they will let you do it. Sometimes they won't. What is the worst that can happen but somebody say, get off my property and don't ever come back? You say, thank you. You turn around, get in your truck, and you drive off. Don't get in an argument with them. It's not worth it. I've never had anybody really get in my face about it. I've had people, no, you know, I just don't want that, you know, and everything. But here are some pluses how to get on permission property, okay? Number one, the biggest plus there is that in rural areas, and I'm talking, you know, getting out kind of kind of out in these rural areas on the edge of wilderness, but yet you're still in the burbs, you know. It's not uncommon for anybody having anywhere between 25 to 300 acres. And if you have a child in your family that hunts, whether it's a boy, girl, or whatever, take that child with you, because in rural areas, there is big emphasis on children. They just love children to death. And so take that child with you. Teach that child, say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am, thank you. All these kind of things, because they like polite, well-behaved children. And you talk to them about it. If they say yes, then you sit down and go over the guidelines. The guidelines are, what area am I allowed to hunt? Am I allowed to put up tree stands? And so on and so forth. Then after you establish these things, if you want to bring a friend with you, you ask them if it's okay. You have to remember this. They don't know you from Adam's house cat, okay? So they have to build their trust in you first. They don't know if you're there to monitor and to break into their home or steal their equipment or whatever. They just don't know you. And so you have to, sometimes it's better off if you're there a year or two before you really ever ask if you can bring somebody with you. And most of the time they would just rather have just you or your family on it. If you have children, you say, you know, yeah, I'm a hunt, but my boy will be with me or my daughter will be with me whenever I hunt. So you go over the guidelines. Now, one thing that TWRA requires is that you have a written permission from the owner of that property to hunt their land, okay? And it has to be signed by the owner of the property, and that has to be on you at all times that you're hunting that property. The other thing that you want to do is to give to them a notarized copy that any type of an accident that should come upon you or anybody that you have on that property, whether you fall out of a stand, whether you tear up your truck, whether you accidentally get shot or whatever, you will not hold them responsible. Have that notarized with make sure their name and their address is on it and all that. Have it notarized, give them the original copy and make a copy for yourself, okay? Because they want to make sure that there is no liability whatsoever, okay? Now, if you can, walk the property off with them. If they give you permission, walk the property off. And if they choose not to walk the property off, they might be elderly and say, well, you just stay down past that white oak over there and we'll be all happy and all this stuff. Find out, well, does your neighbors have any cattle over in this area, or does your neighbor have a house over in this area and all that? Because I certainly don't want to shoot in their direction. And you don't want to shoot toward the direction of their house or anything like that. If there is cattle, that's a big plus, because a lot of times they want the deer that's eliminated on their property. Now let's face it, you can't eliminate the deer on their property. There's just not enough you can do that. You're only allowed to kill so many deer a year, and that's all it is to it. But they like the idea that you being out there. Plus, encourage or tell them that you will be the eyes and ears of their property. If anybody else is on it, if whatever's going on and all that, let them know that you can check and see if there's coyotes and all different type things, and you'd be happy to eliminate any coyotes that are out there. So you get that property, and once you do that, make sure that you just don't come around during deer season, okay? Number one, you have a good friend. Now, you have a good friend and you can talk with them and all that. Be sure and try to share some of the meat. A lot of times they don't care that, you know, to have deer meat. Some don't, some do. Some of them, so if that's the case, share some of that meat with them that you take from their property. And also, anytime that they have a task that's going on, always offer to help, even if that means messing up a hunt for you. It's worth it, because if you can hunt their property for years to come, it's worth not being able to hunt that day or whatever. Okay, I know that gets a little aggravating, but that's the way it is. Now, they have certain rules that they want to put down, and if they decide to change it any time, then it's their property. They can do it. Don't get upset with them. Don't get in an argument with them, because you might need them later on if you find another piece of property, or the next door neighbor, or whatever. Then you want to be sure that you are on a good relationship with them, because they might have to be a witness to that you are a good person. And so, make sure that you always take care of that. Now, one thing also you remember is this: you do not have to pay for that piece of property. So you're not paying anywhere between $500 to $2,500 a year to hunt a leased piece of property. Instead, you're there for free. So if you ever have a chance to pick up some fence posts, or pick up some items that you see they might need around there, they might have some wooden fence posts that are starting to rot out and all that kind of stuff, and you run across a deal on some fence posts, it might cost you a couple of $100. Buy that fence post and give it to them as a gift, saying, hey, I wanted to help out because, you do let me hunt your property. But year-round, check with them periodically. See what is out there. Scout around on their property, things like that. I usually get their phone number. I always give them my phone number. And if I'm coming up, planning on coming up that weekend or whatever, I give them a call ahead of time. And I'll let them know, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I'll be coming up and doing some hunting on that property. That way they don't have to look out the door and say, oh, well, so-and-so's here today. I always let them know my intentions first. Now, if you happen to be driving along and there's a piece of property that nobody is living on, there again, you can go on Google Maps and check it out. Then what you can do is go to the local courthouse. Find that area, find that on the map, their maps there, and once you identify that location, you can see who the owner is. A lot of times there are owners that it might be somebody that lives down the street. It could be somebody in another state. Either way, you can give them a call, or you can send them a letter asking for permission to hunt their property and explaining it. What's the worst that can happen? They can tell you no. So if it's a year or so that takes you to find a piece of property, that's well worth it, because anytime you can be off of public land and to be into hunting permission property, that is a great asset. Plus, you are allowed to hunt certain hunts on permission property that you are not allowed to do on normal public land. So anyway, that's what it gets down to in a nutshell, is you have to go out and you have to sell yourself to these people without being, overly zealous about trying to sell yourself up, because they can see through you in a hurry. You have to realize this: you are in the rural areas, and these people are no dummies whatsoever. But they are also some of the finest people, the salt of the earth. So you might be surprised. You might go out here, and the first time up, you're allowed to hunt. Then you might go through 5 or 6 pieces of property, and all of them turn you down. But always remember this: they have to build their trust in you. Make sure that you tell, and don't leave a mess behind you. Don't leave a mess of a bunch of plastic and all this kind of stuff. Take it out with you. Be sure and shut the gate behind you too. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped out. If you like our channels, be sure to like and subscribe it, and also smash that bell icon for any type of upcoming episodes. Thanks for watching.